It's Monday. I'm in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. I just got back from my multiple weeks of travel, so I'm probably mentally I feel like the low dopamine has probably hit by now.
Mm.
The like super high dopamine from all the travel and vacation, and then you come home and you actually feel worse. Because it's just a lot of.
Or you're just also relieved because you spent a week on spring break with your kids
Yes.
in Florida. So
Mhm.
we love our kids.
I do love my kids. My kids are so excited because last time we went to Naples to visit my parents last year, we did a pirate ship.
Mm.
So they have this like fun little, excursion that is a pirate ship. You can pay, of course, you can pay to give them your children like a little pirate outfit.
Mhm.
And then during the thing, they have one of like the people go on this little, small boat that goes around the ship and shoots water guns to the ship, and like it's a pirate attack.
Yeah.
And then all the ship has like a bunch of water guns that shoot off of it. You get soaking wet, which is great. Exactly what I want. But it was the kids. Taylor keeps asking, like, "Mama, when are we gonna go to the pirate ship? When are we gonna go see Ma and Pa?"
Isn't it amazing that they remember? Like Marcus remembers so much. And also the teacher for parent teacher conference was like, I just have to tell you that if you ever decide to move anywhere except for Texas, you're going to need to like fully have like an explanation to Marcus because every time that they're looking at the United States map, he's telling all his friends that this is where I'm moving and we're getting a mansion there.
Oh
And
my god.
do you have you ever been to Texas? He like keeps talking about Texas. And then he also already told her, I told him that if the resort opens, the new one in Playa del Carmen, that we'll probably go there around the holidays, like we did a couple years ago, and take them because it's like the family
Mhm.
friendly
Yeah.
one, whatever. And she's like, so that was interesting. I'm like, yeah, well, that's my child. He's bougie and
Oh.
expensive. Because I also told him if he wants to do this trip, then we're not going to have like a whole school birthday party like we did last year. And I was like,
Mhm.
we can have a couple friends, but like we're not going to invite the whole class and spend a lot of money, right? So
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I would rather do that.
Birthday parties end up being like $500,
Mhm.
$600. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So a lot of our school is really nice because they, invite everybody. And then so you feel obligated. And then also like
Mhm.
the siblings, which again, it's great to have that community.
Yep.
But yeah, it gets expensive. So, anyways, we are doing a quick one for you guys
Yeah.
today. And, um, you know, I was just sharing with Becca, and I know she gets this too, but I've had a lot of people ask me about bloating, chronic constipation, and gas. And I've posted some things, just telltale indications of underlying infections. And this would be something that rings to me SIBO or SIFO. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or small intestinal fungal overgrowth. So this could be classified as candida, mold toxicity. We do see a lot of mycotoxins from mold that, you don't have to have black mold in your house. It can be colorless and odorless. There's different colors of mold, right? There's white, there's pink, there's black, there's brown, whatever. It could be your work environment, especially if you're a teacher. I find more and more people who are working in old buildings, especially schools, are dealing with some level of mycotoxin illness. And so thinking about, your environment and all of that and water quality is very important. But if this is something that's chronic and it's ongoing for you, you need to address the underlying root cause. Like it's not going to get better. You might be able to do something like a low FODMAP diet or a specific carbohydrate diet, but is that realistic to do long term? And is that something we want to do long term? No, it's not, right? And so we just want to talk about some of these underlying causes and, some things that you can do about it. And then we'll also talk hormones too, because sometimes it can be cyclical.
Yeah, and I want to decipher for people because I think there's a huge difference between bloating and body fat and water retention. So I find water retention's a lot more common with cyclical hormonal related things. So I have a very specific example from last week, even with one of my clients who has a really poor genetic predisposition for estrogen buildup.
Hmm.
And so we ran out of estrocort, which is my big guns go to if I have someone coming in with like really, really bad estrogen detox issues. And she sent me pictures. I have to post them within 2 days of taking the estrocort, a level of bloating that reduced like substantially. Cause I asked her, I said, is it painful
Hmm.
bloating? And she's like, it's not painful. I don't notice it more or less with like eating or anything like that. It's just I have this distension now or this like belly fat is what it felt like to her. It was water retention. It was literally water retention because estrogen will cause you to store water in high amounts when it's not balanced properly and it's not detoxing well. And so understanding the difference between like a true bloat that I think people with gut infections feel, and what I've felt before with, I've had dairy intolerances and like histamine issues in the past that have since, I've been able to resolve. But when you have a bloat, it's uncomfortable. I explain it kind of like period cramps, but in your stomach. That's how I think the bloat probably feels. Otherwise, for some people, it's just like there's a level of body fat that maybe, hasn't gone away. Or for some women, that it's cyclical. Usually it's more water retention and they don't experience the pain
Mhm.
that comes from gas buildup and what we see more commonly with a gut related dysfunction of, a true bloat with a SIBO or SIFO or gut infection. So we just want to kind of decipher that too, because I think a lot of people think that they're bloated, but they're fat. For a lack of a better term, like I don't mean to be harsh here, but like
Yeah.
you're carrying body fat in your midsection.
And as you're eating and as you're drinking throughout the day, right, there is some level of you can tell that you ate, but it
It's
should not
normal.
be, yeah, that's normal. It should not be like a balloon that's expanding. And I've done a reel on this and it was actually related to estrogen, but you're just continuing to expand or you're constantly feeling this way where you're having, bloating and it feels like there's air and it's like Becca said, it's kind of painful and you're gassy and maybe you have sulfur smelling stools, right? Or sulfur smelling breath, right? And burps and things like that, which are more correlated to infections. And so the big thing here, even with estrogen, that I want to call out is that a large part of our estrogen detox relies on proper bile flow, and it relies on obviously us moving our bowels every day and the liver being able to do its job and us to be able to go through different detox pathways and mechanisms in the body, such as glucuronidation, methylation, right? So this is where we're looking to say if we have a lot of burden on the body and we have a lot of these genetic factors that are impairing our ability to properly detoxify, calm down inflammation, handle estrogen and, get it out of the body in a timely manner so that it's not then backing up and building up. We need to do the root cause work, right? Like so many people on my Instagram have been in my DMs and they're just saying like, this is chronic, it's ongoing. And I'm like, well, what have you tried? What have you done? And I've cut out gluten, I've cut out dairy. And y'all, I am telling you, well, yes, they are inflammatory food groups. And yes, we have a level of glyphosate in the United States. And that doesn't even matter because gluten-free products have glyphosate on them too. It's not always a food issue. And it can be that the food is making your symptoms worse because the bacteria are feeding on it. But if we don't ever do the work to rebalance the gut microbiome, to support your drainage and detox pathways, to support the liver, to support methylation and estrogen detoxification, it's not going to get better. And if you want to accept an IBS diagnosis, which is a BS catch-all diagnosis, that's up to you, right? I don't want to accept something that is making me miserable every day, right? And when we think about IBS and why I say it's a BS catch-all diagnosis, because there's no diagnostic test for it. It's literally just from symptoms, right? You might go and get a colonoscopy and you're saying that you're constipated, so they're going to slap that C on the end. You might say you're back and forth, and so they're going to give you an M on the end, which is a mixed diarrhea to constipation. Or you might have IBS-D, which is IBS diarrhea. Well, let me also enlighten you that that can be related to things like C. diff and infections that are actually in the large intestine. So it's really like understanding what is going on within the entire terrain. And when we think about the hormonal imbalances and irregulation here, hormones are a downstream effect, as we always say. And so this is where we're going to think gut, but we're also going to think liver. A lot of cases in our practice, we see it time and time again. It's a liver gallbladder issue, and it's not necessarily that we have to go in with a bunch of eradication agents and, focus on all this stuff. And in fact, I've stopped putting in a lot of eradication agents because I find that people can't properly detox. And until we fix that, putting the eradication agents in place is probably going to make things worse because you're stirring it up and you're not getting it out. And that's going to make people feel more miserable. And so I think it's really, really important to always ask the question, especially if it's chronic, what else is going on here? And then I always say too, and you can talk about this as well, What else is going on? You're complaining of this bloating and maybe gas or, constipation or diarrhea or get whatever it might be. But if you sat down and you really thought, like, do I feel optimal or how do I feel in the day? Do I have brain fog? Can I stay focused? Am I distracted? Do I have joint pain? Do I have skin issues? Do I have acne? Do I have rosacea? Like, what are things that you've just kind of like learned to live with? Is your sleep poor? Are you recovering from your exercise? Do you feel like you have a good mood? Are you snappy? Are you irritable? You feel depressed? You feel lethargic? I love what we just talked about with Dr. Romina, that a lot of people, they don't have enough of the good dopamine activities to bring them joy in their day. And so they say kind of like, I just feel like blah. Because like I know coming through the winter season here in Chicago and gloomy days, rainy days, it's very easy to feel down and in a slump. And then it's like, okay, what can I do to give myself something that brings me joy? Don't shop on Amazon as much as I do. I'm not telling you to do that because I know I need to not do that. But pay attention to these symptoms because I bet you, and I've said this to everybody, what else is going on besides this bloating or constipation or diarrhea? Because I bet you there's probably 5 to 10 other symptoms that you're just not really paying attention to because it's not a big enough pain point yet.
Yeah, and the bloat, I mean, we know with bloating, there's going to be probably digestion issues in terms of absorption. You're not absorbing nutrients, and then you have lack of cofactors for other enzymatic functions in the body to convert vitamin D to help with, hormonal production and detoxification. Like, it's not just bloat, right? And that's the same thing that I say with weight. When people are gaining weight and they're so focused on the weight, I'm like, I can promise you that's not the only thing going on. There's other things happening or that have been happening that have been brewing. Perimenopause, perfect example.
Mhm.
So many women message me like, well, I'm in perimenopause and now I'm dealing with all these symptoms. I'm like, I can promise you things were going on before then. They just weren't a pain point enough for you to ever address them. And now the immunological factor gets kicked in with the hormonal fluctuations of perimenopause, and you feel like dog shit. And now you're like, it's perimenopause. It was not perimenopause. It was so many other things happening that were going on. And we're about to talk to Dr. Maritza, which is going to be amazing because she talks about this too. So many women do not enter perimenopause in a healthy state. Maybe they're not super symptomatic, but they're not healthy. They're not optimized, which is why we're so preventative in all of this. But if you've been dealing with these things for chronic amounts of time, like longer than a few months, find someone that is going to dig deeper for you and do not let them just sit there because they will get worse. I can promise you they will get worse, especially if things weren't just like, oh, it was happening for a couple weeks or a few days. No, if things have been going on for months, in most of the cases we talk to years, decades, things have been brewing for far longer. There's a huge difference between being asymptomatic and being healthy. And so that is why we are such big proponents of getting blood work done by someone that knows how to actually analyze not diseased blood work, someone that looks for trends, that looks for optimization, because hopefully the people listening to this podcast want optimize. They want to optimize their health. They don't just want to not be diseased. And a lot of these people that are dealing with chronic years and years of bloating and gut dysfunction, it's bigger than just a little bit of bloat and not being able to handle some foods. Like, I can promise you it has reached systemic levels and it is affecting far more within your body. And so, yes, you can do the low FODMAP, you can do, some diet changes, but at that point, you're dealing with a much bigger issue that's going to take more layers to peel back. And usually in those cases, you need to work with someone or else you're just going to waste time. Like, you're going to waste time. You're going to end up wasting money because you're going to keep trying different supplements or you're going to go to different doctors or you're going to do all of the things that ultimately aren't going to work. And so the thing that I think about is like, if I could go back in time and someone could tell me, give me 2 months' wages to fix years of issues and all of the symptoms you're dealing with, or you can struggle for the next 3 years until you finally find your answer. I'd be like, oh, here you go. Let me open a credit line. Like, it is, and we get it. Functional route is an investment, but look at what you are ending up sacrificing if you don't go that way. Because we have talked to thousands of women at this point, and usually they have been to dozens of doctors.
Mhm.
They have spent years trying to find answers, and they're still stuck.
And this could be in functional medicine too.
Yes.
We've got cases in our practice that come to us from other doctors and functional medicine providers. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, you've missed a piece of the puzzle here, right? A lot of times it comes down to liver gallbladder. I am seeing a lot more, especially for females who are struggling with estrogen like symptoms, but not necessarily like high estrogen or, showing these lab values that would make you think estrogen dominance. But yet they have symptoms that persist that it's a mycotoxin that mimics estrogen in the body. And then you combine that with the toxic soup that we live in and all of the, estrogen mimicking chemicals that we have and that we're exposed to. It's just not a good situation. And so if you're doing the protocols and things are not getting better, then you really have to dig deeper. It could be that you need to go through a season of really deep autophagy, right? And fasting and really resetting the immune system, because that can be, something that's allowing things to proliferate. We see this time and time again for individuals who have maybe done the work and things got better, but then again, they didn't continue to support their drainage and detox pathways, the gut liver axis. And so things come back. And they maybe end up with a UTI or, some other kind of, infection. So they're taking an antibiotic and then this sends them into another spiral. A lot of this comes down to, and this is what we talk a lot about in terms of root cause, the immune system not being able to modulate to maintain homeostasis. And so if you've also been on a path to trying to clear things, maybe you're trying to clear the wrong thing, or you're not doing the lifestyle and the dietary interventions and the fasting protocols that are needed, or maybe looking further at genetics. So there's a lot of things that we can go back to and look at in terms of what might be going on underlying. But we just wanted to do this podcast because, as Becca said, it's not going to get better and it's not something that you should have to live with. Mm-hmm. But you do kind of got to decipher, right? Is it the balloon that's expanding in your belly all day? Is it body fat? Or is it water retention?